Meeting is now called to order. This is the Intergovernmental Committee meeting for May 7th, 2025. I am your chairperson, Councilmember Shanae Darby for the 2nd District. At this time, I will call the roll for those members of the committee first. Do we have Councilmember Vice Chair Christopher Johnson? Councilmember Christian Willauer?
Present.
Councilmember Xanthia Oliver? And our council president, Ernest Trippy Congo.
Here.
I would like to also recognize, I'm sorry. Who? Oh, Chris Johnson is online? Okay.
Here.
Yep, I would like to recognize Councilmember Chris Johnson. We also want to recognize council members who are not on the committee. We also have Councilmember Kobe Owens here. As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions and seconding. And we're going to go ahead and proceed with the agenda. Tonight we have 2 presentations. Our first presentation is going to be on police assessments by Carlton T. Myers, Esquire, founder, owner, and CEO of our Mayor's Strategic Solutions, LLC. He'll be giving us a presentation. And then after that, we'll have our presentation on the right to representation and eviction cases by the Right to Representation Coordinator for the Delaware Legal Aid for Eviction Defense Program. So Carlton Myers, if you're on the call, we can go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all the council members. I am awaiting my slides to be shared with all of you. And then we can get started. All right. I think I think the slides are up at this point, if I'm correct, right? Okay. Well, on that note, good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today about solving community development and safety challenges by centering community empowerment. Through my consulting company, Mayor Strategic Solutions, LLC, I use my over 15 years of experience as a community lawyer to assist communities nationwide to solve community development and safety challenges by using the CAP method, which stands for C for Community Empowerment, A for Accountability, and T for Transparency. I use the CAP method to work with communities across the country on identifying, strategizing, and implementing long-term and positive change in practices, policies, and culture. A little bit of background on me. I used to direct NAACP National Office's Criminal Justice Reform Program back when Ben Jealous was president. After him, President Cornell William Brooks. While I was in that role, I co-authored NAACP National Office's Born Suspect, Ending Racial Profiling Report, published in 2014, provides all kinds of information on how to end racial profiling by state and local police. After that, I transitioned over to NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund Incorporated, Thurgood Marshall's law firm, where I worked under the leadership of Sherilyn Ifill as the policy counsel for the policing reform campaign. In this role for 3 years, I worked on both the Ferguson, Missouri and Baltimore, Maryland consent decrees from negotiation through implementation. I also worked on the Walter Scott case out of North Charleston, South Carolina, and the Eric Gardner case out of New York City. Additionally, I lobbied on the Hill for federal policing reform legislation, a lot of which has been incorporated into the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And finally, I did a lot of work with President Barack Obama's administration and White House on a series of, and this was for 5 years respectively, at NAACP National Office and at Legal Defense Fund, on a series of policing reform efforts, most notably the 21st Century Policing Task Force Report recommendations. So now, like I said to you earlier, and we're going to go on to the next slide. All right. And so now what I do is I work with communities. All right. Go 2 slides over. So we're going to go to the next slide. There we go, this one. So like I mentioned to you earlier, I work with communities around the country through the CAP method to help them to solve community development and safety challenges. Now, as you can see here on this slide, there are 3 components to the CAP method. Each component must be achieved in order for the CAP method to be successful. The first component is community empowerment, and this entails community members, especially those who are living in neighborhoods, zip codes, and blocks and areas where there's both high levels of crime and a history of high levels of negative police interactions, like racial profiling, excessive use of force, etc. These community members especially need to be involved in, need to have knowledge of, and need to have decision-making authority over all direct police-civilian interactions, like stops, arrests, uses of force, surveillance technology, the way that protests are handled, etc. And the reason for this is because the people closest to the problems are also the people closest to the solutions. So if we want to see long-term solutions for long-term problems, we have to make sure that the people most directly impacted by community development and safety challenges are at the helm of decision-making with law enforcement and also working with the other aspects of the community, as we're going to discuss in a minute. And so the next component is and all of them working together as one community. The next component is accountability. And this involves creating an inhospitable environment for those who engage in misconduct by establishing both internal and external accountability mechanisms that would work together. And then lastly, we have transparency, which I define as the interconnectedness and coordination amongst what I call the 4 aspects of the community, as you're going to see here on the next slide. All right, so for this slide, whoever's controlling the slides, I need you to do 1 click, 2 clicks. So I'll say 1 click right now. So first we have, like I said, the 4 aspects of the community. First we have law enforcement. That's the sheriff's office, state and local police. Okay, next click. Then we have elected and appointed government officials. This also includes government employees. Next click. Then we have community members, and this includes directly impacted individuals, community-based organizations, direct service providers, faith-based organizations, and private business, etc. And then next click. Last but not least, we have the local press and news media. So according to my definition of transparency, all 4 of these aspects of the community would need to work together as one community to support community development and safety and ensure accountability through more so proactive rather than reactive strategies. Now, I know all of this sounds good, but let's now on the next slide start to look at how this actually works out in action, through action. Okay, so I know I said a lot. I want to now talk about some of the work I've done and how the CAP method has been reflected through that work. So for instance, as you can see here on this slide, I'm going to show 2 videos to you. Both of them are out of Nashville, Tennessee. I was hired a couple of years ago by the Metropolitan Nashville Community Oversight Board. That's the civilian oversight authority of the law enforcement in Nashville, Tennessee, to do an assessment of their civilian complaint process. Now, for that assessment, I did the reviews of their policies, their trainings, any kind of trending data, reviewing all the other related documents, and also included interviewing relevant parties. Now, in addition to that, I also structured their assessment a certain way, which you're going to see in this slide. And then on top of that, what I want to emphasize with you is the way that I operate. So when I do an assessment, I don't just come through this like now. I've done a number of assessments at this point. This is just one of them that I'm showing you. When I do my assessments, I don't just come through, do an assessment, write a report, do a presentation on it, and then I leave. When I come through, it's about empowering. How can I empower you who've hired me so that now once the project is done and I leave, you're still empowered to move forward on the work. So you're going to see that play out in these videos as well. So I'd like whoever's in control of the slides to click on the video on the left-hand side first. Thank you. So for today's presentation, I will focus on 3 prioritization areas of engagement related to the COB and MNCO. As shown on the right side of the slide, you can see MNCO COB engagement with the community, engagement with government entities and organizations, engagement with MNCO office and departments. Now, like I said, I did the presentation yesterday. I focused on the government entities and MNCO office and departments. So for today's presentation, we're just going to focus on MNCO and COB engagement with the community, okay? Now, due to time constraints, I think it was still supposed to go. You have to click on it. strengths, which are very short right now, I will only focus on the one highlighted prioritization area, being with community. And each prioritization area of engagement is broken down into 7 categories, as you could see on the left side of the slide, being structure, communication, risk liability, optics, time, capacity, and resources. So the importance for you to see out of this is, number one, how I structured it. So what I did is I looked at what does the engagement with the Civilian Oversight Authority look with the community, number one, with other government entities and organizations, number two, and with internally their own offices and departments, number three. And then I broke down each one of those categories by structure, communication, risk liability, optics, time, and capacity, and resources. So just so you can see how I structured the assessment and understanding now how, and this presentation, that was after the assessment was done. I was presenting it to the public. So now the next video you're going to see, you're going to hear from the director of the Civilian Oversight Authority, and you're going to hear, now that it's been a few months after the assessment, what have they done to move on it for implementation? Like I said, action oriented, not just about writing a report and getting it shelved. So please click on the next one. Thank you.
So we had an assessment. We called in a professional. He is a criminal justice reformist, worked with the Southern Poverty Law Center, as well as with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund as their policy director. And so these were some of the things that we picked out to talk about. His report is available if any of you want to see it. It says the CRB needs an MOU with the Office of Professional Accountability to institutionalize the audit process. There needs to be an MOU between the CRB and the MMPD, and it needs to be renegotiated for the CRB's audits and timely access to data. The mayor's office should ensure that a point of contact attends all the CRB meetings, and the CRB should continue to work with the National Conflict Resolution Center for mediation and expand to include our own in-house Rule 31 mediator. And we have done that. Our social worker has taken the mediation Rule 31 courses and is now, and was accepted. So she is now our in-house certified Rule 31 mediator. And so
just want to, once again, you're seeing how I did the assessment, presented it, and then after that, within months, there was now action. Because the way that I do my assessment, it's not a report. It's going to be, okay, this is what we learned. This is the recommendation. This is who should be designated to move forward on that recommendation. And this is the timeline that they should use to do that. So now you don't only have recommendations, you have action items. You have action steps. So once the project's done, you're not just shelving a report, you're now moving forward on tangible, workable action. Next slide, please. So for today's presentation. Yep, keep going. Just keep on clicking until you get to the next slide. For today. Thank you. All right. So, you have to go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay. So in 2020, I was hired by the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to work with the Milwaukee Police Department, the Office of Violence Prevention, the Civilian Oversight Authority, the mayor's office, and also with community-based organizations and direct service providers on helping them to develop what they call a citywide public safety plan to address both crime and police accountability in one plan. And so what I did is I helped them to came up with the idea of let's do 16 public safety listening sessions. There's 15 aldermanic districts in Milwaukee, so we did one per district, and then we did an additional one just with the youth. And I helped them to develop the run of show, the program, and I co-facilitated each one of the listening sessions using the CAP method and working with a local facilitator. And we also used interactive technology so that now instead of having the conversation using chalkboard and easel paper, we were using cell phones, we were using tablets, we were using laptops, which now allowed for the conversation to be more accessible to more people, because now you didn't have to be in the same room in order to be a part of the conversation. It also allowed more young people to participate because where are young people? They're on their phones most of the time. So let's bring the conversation to the phone. And then lastly, anytime you submit an answer through interactive technology, that answer is anonymous. So that allows people to be more honest, more candid. That means you get more information, which means now you can come up with a comprehensive solution for your challenges. So the video here is going to be when the news media came in. They broadcasted on evening news, one of our listening sessions. It's going to be the one on the right-hand side. I would like you to click on that video, please.
New tonight at 10, Telehil Mohadeen shares how they're connecting with the city's neighbors.
An attempt to reimagine public safety, starting with this meeting, bringing police and community members together.
To bring about the kind of change that you want to see.
I'm really interested in any time residents come together to be able to express themselves.
At Village Square Library, this is the 14th community listening session put on by the Milwaukee Police Department and their partners to hear from people who lived in each of the city's 15 aldermanic districts.
To be honest, we would like more community participation. This one, though, today is amazing.
The facilitator is asking participants a series of questions around public safety and inviting participants, including some officers, to anonymously send their responses online before engaging in an open discussion.
Community-oriented policing is the only way policing should be done. It looks like police who attend community events, police who are interacting with children, police who are walking the beat and know neighbors by their first names.
A lot of those officers live in the city. I live in the city. My aldermanic district listening session is next month. So I want a voice because I'm a resident. And there's certain things I want to feel safe too that they don't have anything to do with the police.
MPD Administration Bureau Assistant Chief Nicole Waldner says the purpose here is to take the feedback given and create a citywide community policing plan. And she says they're relying on the expertise of the Wisconsin Policy Forum, a nonpartisan research group, to help them get it right.
They've attended each meeting, they take notes and from what the community members say, and they're going to generate a report.
But also says the work doesn't stop there.
To get a good slice of the population and the makeup of the city, we're going to have to continue these listening sessions with different groups for a while, but still implement the things that we're learning as we go.
In Milwaukee, Tahlil Muhaddin, TMJ4 News.
So just want to let you know before we move on to the last video, is that what we did here is we did the listening sessions. We had the think tank Wisconsin Policy Forum sit in on them and write notes on the conversation being generated by the facilitated conversation that I was facilitating using the CAP method. And then we took that information, drafted a report. I worked with the Wisconsin Policy Forum on the report. That report was published last year. Those recommendations in that report are going to be used to create the citywide public safety plan. If you're interested in that report, I'll have my contact information on the last slide. You can reach out to me to get that. Please move on to the next slide. This will be the last one.
May I be identified?
Yes.
Thank
you.
you.
Is that Councilmember Oliver?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Okay, if we can move on to the next slide, please. All right, now for this one, this is the last video. A couple of years ago, I was also hired by the Muncie, Indiana Human Rights Commission and NAACP to work with them on not doing what we did in Milwaukee, but something similar. Instead of coming up with a citywide public safety plan, they wanted to have a conversation with their youth about guns and gun violence with youth. They have a lot of issues with youth and guns in the city of Muncie, Indiana, and the youth are not talking to adults about it. So they asked me, do you think using CAP method with the interactive technology, because it's on the cell phone, that might get young people to actually talk to us about guns? And I said, I think so. So I worked with them. I helped develop the run of show, the program, and I co-facilitated this 2-hour event with 2 high school age youth. And we did a gun violence youth roundtable discussion, got a lot of information, and now Muncie, Indiana is moving forward, once again, tangible, workable items to solve those challenges. Please play the video on the left, and this is the last video. Thank you.
So I thought tonight was very beneficial and like important for us. So we can speak up and use our voice, like change our community day by day. So we are the future of tomorrow. So yeah.
Today I think it went very good, honestly. I think it was a great conversation. I feel like people comprehended what it needed to be said. I think the takeaways that our community just needs to learn how to communicate more and just play their part.
I think that this talk was a great experience. I feel like we need more talks like this in the community so it can make a change and make a difference and to build us as people.
I thought this was very good. I thought the communication with the youth and the future and the now, bringing people from students and people that are in the police and the community, getting us all very involved.
I love it. This is so important, and I see where the youth are going to be seated, and MPD is going to be represented right over there in that special space where it's youth only. I love that they get a chance to have one-on-one intimate time with you, right? No adults a part of the conversation, except for the moderator, right? What does that feel like for you to be able to really just capture and have time with the youth like this?
I think that it's so important to have positive interactions with youth, and make sure that we are connecting with them in times when they're not under duress, we're not under duress, because then we can have some of these conversations and break down these barriers. If we want to make some of these changes moving forward, it's important for them to have a relationship with us where they feel, one, like we are here for everybody in the city, which we are, and two, that they can come to us at any point and report these kind of things, because that's how we prevent tragedies moving forward.
Absolutely. I love it, Erin. Well, listen, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, the biggest thing that sparked this was our summer program that we have with the Munson Parks Department. Earlier this summer, we had talked about gun violence with the youth and the police, and the interaction was really great. And there was a question that was asked, how many youth had been around a gun or seen a gun? And out of 150 kids that we had in the audience, about 80% of those kids had raised their hands.
Wow.
And so we had already was hired in Carlton mayors to work with public safety and gun violence awareness in the community. But I was like, let's involve the youth so we can hear their voice and they can interact with the police, because they're the ones that's in the school that's dealing with the gun violence more than the older adults.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. We could please go to the last slide so I could wrap it up. The very last one. Thank you. All right, so on that note, thank you so much. I just want to make sure you understand that when it comes to the work I do, if it's assessments, if it's just having conversations, if it's developing a citywide public safety plan, or even legislation, whatever it looks like, my goal is community empowerment. How do we empower you so that now you, being everybody, all those four aspects of the community, are now empowered to work together to solve challenges in your community, whatever that looks like, because there is no one-size-fits-all approach. So if you're interested in learning more about the work I've done, you can scan the QR code with your phone. That'll take you directly to my website. You could also just go to www.mayorsolutions.org with 2 S's, or email me at the word empower, EMPOWER, at mayorsolutions.org. Also reach out to me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So thank you once again, and please do keep in touch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Myers. I want to open any questions from members of council to Mr. Myers about his presentation. Any comments? Councilmember Oliver?
I have something I wanted to ask. Good evening. I'm glad to hear your presentation. I did read up on you. My question is, when you were connecting, were they just, when you were connecting with the community, was it civic associations, was it, or just like girls and boys clubs, was it just various organizations throughout the communities?
So every time I work with any community, I always rely on the client, whoever hires me, to, pretty much whoever their connections are, they bring them to the table, and then I work with them and I provide added value to the work they're already doing.
May I follow up? Madam Chair?
Yes, you can follow up.
Okay, I appreciate that. That makes sense. Well, I guess that's the same question. Have you dealt with? Okay, I get it. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes. One thing I do want to say, I'm call on Councilmember Owens next, is what I love about the approaches with looking at our police and talking about reforming it. We also have to look at violence prevention in our community, right? So your two-way prong approach, I think, is the best way for our city, because I feel like we have been starting the conversation around, because Dr. Deborah Mason, she runs our CPSI program, which is focused on violence prevention in our city. She's doing a wonderful job, but just finding a way to merge the two conversations and that they both have to happen together, right? We can't talk about violence prevention without talking about police reform. We can't talk about police reform without talking about gun violence prevention. So I think that connection is so key and important for me to understand, and other council members in the administration, as we begin to work together and have this conversation more in depth. Councilmember Owens.
Yeah, sorry I had to leave in person. I had to get to another meeting. Carlton, is always great seeing you, my brother. Again, amazing presentation. This is something that is truly needed here in the city of Wilmington. What will it take to get you to be a consultant here in the city of Wilmington? And are you willing to come and work with the city of Wilmington?
Yes, and very good to hear you and see you earlier, Kobe. But yeah, I'm definitely very interested in working in Wilmington. I actually have done some work a couple of years ago in Wilmington and in Delaware overall, working with NAACP on some work related to community safety. And so I am aware of the dynamics in the Wilmington community. And, I would love to, you've already been doing a lot of great work. I don't want to act like the city of Wilmington has not already been doing great work over the years. Like I said earlier, I don't come in to bring the work. I come in to provide added value to the great work you're already doing, to just strengthen it. And so I'm definitely very interested in that. And also to kind of touch on what Councilwoman Darby said earlier, is that studies have already shown over the years that if we're going to address improving community police relations, or if we're going to address gun violence and community violence, we have to work on the other issue. We cannot just work on community violence without working on improving community police relations. We cannot just work on improving community police relations without also working on community violence. Studies have shown this, and we've even seen, even more recently, as of today, we know the Tyree Nichols case came down with the non-conviction of those officers. I'm already hearing from African Americans all around the country that are like, oh, look, once again, we can't trust the police. Look, once again, we can't trust the criminal legal system. What does that equate to when we're talking about a gun violence incident? That means people are not picking up the phones and dialing 911 when a violent offense occurs in their neighborhood, because they don't trust the police, right? They don't trust the system. So the more that we work on resolving those issues and bringing everybody together, the better that it is, not only when it comes to improving community police relations, but even when it comes to solving community safety challenges. Because now more people are picking up the phone, more people are calling the police, more people are giving police information they need to solve crimes. So they do work hand in hand, and studies have shown that this is the case.
Any other questions from council members? Yeah, so the administration has been pulled into conversations about Mr. Carlton's the services that he's offered. I know that the administration is also waiting for our police accountability board / civilian review board to be fully established. So we are currently looking for nominations. I know we're looking for like a mental health professional still. And I think we're looking for another mental health and education person to serve on the police accountability board. So I think the administration is waiting for that to get up and running, and to also hear what the recommendations are from the civilian review board / police accountability board. So they're waiting to hear recommendations from them, and to do it all in one big sweep on the recommendations for police / gun prevention or violence prevention reform in our city. So I think that is what they're waiting for to continue the conversation. But I hope that after the civilian review board is established, we can move forward and get this started for our city. I don't know if you have any closing comments or thoughts, Mr. Carlton.
Number one, I just want to say thank you for allowing me time to present some of my work to you, and also the CAP method. And I do want to just, I guess the last thing I want to say is that there is no one size fits all approach. You know, when we're doing this work, we have to understand that every community is different. Even in Delaware, where you have, you know, different jurisdictions like Wilmington and also like Dover, et cetera, you have to understand, even though you're all under the same state law, there's going to be different nuances, different demographics, different cultures, different histories that need to be taken into account for any kind of solutions that would actually work for your community. So what might work in Dover may not work in Wilmington. What works in Wilmington may not work in Dover. So, you know, just understanding the importance of making sure you have a process that allows for a customizable approach. That way, it's something that can work for everybody in your community. And I just want to emphasize that's why we use interactive technology in most of what I showed you today, because that allows for the community, including law enforcement, to be able to participate anonymously and provide those answers that we all need to solve these challenges. So it does not allow for a one-size-fits-all approach. It allows the community to develop that process. And that's empowering. And that's what it's about, community empowerment. So thank you for allowing me this time to share that with you.
Yes, no, thank you, Doctor. I keep calling you Doctor. I'm making you get a degree. But Mr. Mr. Carlton, so we're going to move on to our next presentation. So we have Miss Lisa from Right to Represent from Legal Aid, from Delaware Legal Aid for Eviction Defense Program. So I'm going to have you just approach. You can either sit down or stand up. We're going to present together. So yeah, both of you guys can come up. Yes.
So thank you for allowing us to come tonight to present about the new right to representation in eviction cases law in Delaware. I'm Lisa Lessner. I'm the right to representation coordinator, and this is Sarah Ryan. She is the managing attorney for the Community Legal Aid Society housing unit. And we're going to tag team this presentation a bit. I'm going to start with some background about the right to representation and how we got our legislation passed. Sarah's going to talk about how it's been working in practice during the first year and a half since the legislation was enacted. And we're going to close with some statistics and some ideas about how City Council and the city can support our work. Sorry. Next slide, please. So just for some background, civil legal cases involving basic human needs like housing, child custody, and personal safety can be complex, yet there is no guaranteed right to counsel as there is in criminal cases. The U.S. Supreme Court has not established a broad civil right to counsel, so progress happens incrementally, varying by state, by city, and by issue. Without that right, people who can't afford a lawyer often face legal challenges alone, even in high-stake cases like eviction. Eviction cases highlight the imbalance between litigants. In Delaware, prior to the passage of right to representation, there was a study done by the University of Delaware that showed that only 2% of tenants versus 86% of landlords had some type of third-party representation in eviction court. In cases involving money judgments, 29% were for amounts under $1,000. In 82% of eviction hearings, landlords received a possession judgment to evict, and in 72% of possession judgments, tenants didn't even bother to show up for the hearing. So representation matters. In national studies, tenants with lawyers are 8 to 200 times more likely to succeed in court. So after watching other jurisdictions adopt right to counsel laws, starting with New York City in 2017, we formed a Delaware coalition in 2020, including Delaware's 3 civil legal aid agencies, the ACLU, the Homes Campaign, Housing Alliance Delaware, the University of Delaware, and other housing advocates. In the spring of 2023, with Brian Townsend and Melissa Minor-Brown as our legislation sponsors, Delaware passed the right to representation in evictions with phased implementation beginning in November 2023. Just for clarification, our right is called right to representation rather than right to counsel because we were successful in getting a Delaware Supreme Court rule change so that non-lawyer qualified tenant advocates who report to the legal aid agencies can also represent tenants. And Sarah will explain a bit more about how that works in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So who is eligible according to the legislation? Tenant income must be 200% or less of the federal poverty level. The tenant must live in a non-exempt rental unit. Legal aid must not decline the case. And we have a phased implementation, which is prioritizing certain zip codes, and we're adding zip codes over time. But as far as I've heard, they are generally not turning down anybody because of their zip code. It's just in case they are especially overwhelmed, that gives them a way to turn people away if they had to. The list of zip codes is on our Eviction Help DE webpage. Next slide, please. So the exceptions to the right in the legislation are that a tenant cannot receive representation if there's a conflict of interest, the legal provider declines due to non-compliance with the application process, professional conduct rules require withdrawal, no legal merit in the case, or other valid limitations. Next slide, please. So what do landlords have to do? This is the notice that they've been provided with. It's also available on our Eviction Help DE webpage, and I'll give a little bit more information in a couple of slides about when they have to provide this to their tenants. But this is the official notice. Next slide, please. So there was an exemption in the legislation for smaller landlords. A landlord is exempt if they own 3 or fewer rental units and are not represented by an attorney or a certified agent. Next slide, please. So when do landlords have to give that notice? It must be provided at the lease signing, including oral agreements, at lease renewal or modification, or when giving notice that the rent is late, lease terms were violated, the lease is terminated, or the housing subsidy ends. And the tenants also received notice when they receive their initial notice from the court to ask them to participate in eviction diversion. So they have many opportunities to find out that they have this right to representation in their case. And now I'll turn it over to Sarah to talk about the more interesting stuff.
Next slide. So I'm manage the housing work at Classy, and so I'm going to be the on-the-ground person today to talk about kind of how things are working in our community. So one piece of the legislation that's important for us to highlight is that we were hoping that cases could be resolved prior to trial. And so as part of the right to representation legislation, every tenant, not just tenants who qualify for legal services, are required, those cases are required to go to an eviction diversion program or a dispute resolution program. So the courts are running basically a mediation online dispute resolution program for every tenant who has an eviction filed against them in the state of Delaware. The idea is that we're hoping to catch tenants and landlords earlier in the process to help to resolve cases before families are displaced. Next slide. So the 3 legal services organizations in Delaware are on this slide. These are the organizations that are implementing right to representation. And next slide. You can reach them in a couple different ways. So if you want to do an online intake, we really encourage people to do that. That allows them to do intake 24 hours a day. They don't have to take time out of their day to make a phone call or feel frustrated by having to wait to talk to somebody. You can just fill out an intake anytime, and you will get a call within 24 to 48 hours for one of the legal aid organizations to complete your intake for services. You could also call 211 for assistance. They will do the online intake for you or walk you through the intake. You can also call us directly. Our offices are open to people who want to walk in, so folks can walk into our offices or they can call us. And the eviction help link page is there because we are working actually really hard and diligently to provide more and more resources on that page. We're hoping to update it soon, but keep checking back because there should be some really good resources for folks that will be coming online in the next, hopefully, couple months. Next. So, what do the lawyers do? So, I want to stop here and say that anyone who needs legal assistance should get it as soon as possible. We have a lot of folks who think that they can't call us until their eviction is filed. That is not true. The right to representation law allows us to help people very early in dispute process. So if your housing subsidy is at risk, if you think that your tenancy is at risk, or if you know someone who might be at risk of eviction, contacting legal services as early as possible helps us to intervene and prevent negative impact, right? So the number one thing on this slide is negotiating with landlords. Landlords are in the business of providing housing. We want them to provide housing. That's our job, right, is to work with them to make sure families are not displaced. So if you or anyone you know is having trouble negotiating, talking, communicating with the landlord, legal services is a good referral. We also do all the things that lawyers do, right? We identify legal defenses, we file affirmative cases against landlords, we try and provide as much representation as is necessary in every case as is required by the law. So that often means that we're entering our appearance in court on behalf of folks. But we also help people to access resources. As we all know, these resources are drying up. And we expect, and this is where I have a sobering thing to say, right? We expect that there will be more evictions and that there will be less resources in the coming year. Okay. Oh, and it's important to say here that, I'll just stop. The Housing Stability Program, which has been the large rental assistance program for folks who are facing eviction in the state, ends the end of May. So we have about 2 more weeks left of that rental assistance program, and that's huge. That's a really huge blow. All right, next. Oh, and I don't know that you said this, Lisa. I'm gonna stop and say this now. I wanna be clear that not every tenant is eligible for legal services from one of the legal aid organizations. That, however, doesn't mean you shouldn't refer anybody that you think might be eligible to us. As Lisa said, every single tenant in the state should be getting a flyer that gives our information, and every single tenant in the state is eligible for mediation. So we can sometimes give advice or other resources to folks who aren't eligible for our services, but there is an income eligibility for legal aid. Okay. I'm going to pivot from that last slide where I said everything is disappearing to talk about a fund that we started collectively, the Right to Representation Coordinator and the Eviction Defense Project, which is, again, all of those organizations that came together for right to representation, recognized that one of the big issues in landlord-tenant cases is, drumroll please, money, right? So one of the big issues is getting a landlord and tenant to have a conversation about that money. A lot of times by the time a landlord is thinking about filing against a tenant, the relationship between the landlord and tenant has broken down. There's not good communication anymore. And it's a money issue, and it's a money problem, and it's money that we need to solve it. And so some of the COVID money that came into the state was used to create a settlement assistance fund. That fund will disappear just like all of the other resources that we have in September. But I wanted to talk to you about the fund and about how we've been utilizing it and what a great benefit it is. So the fund was for $1,000 per household, one-time grant forever, up to a $1,500 limit for extenuating circumstances. I'm going to be honest with you and say that when this fund started, I thought $1,000 doesn't even cover a month's rent. $1,000 is nothing, right? We used this money without taking any administrative costs out. We passed it through directly to clients, and $1,000 a piece, we were settling cases. I just said that it's hard to get a landlord and tenant to the table to talk about money. But when you have money to put on that table, those two parties come together and have a dialogue. And so you just heard a presentation before us about community building. We're doing a lot of community lawyering, right? Trying to bring people together to make sure that we don't face displacement of households. A displacement of a household, like Lisa talked about earlier, that's a huge cost to everyone, right? It's a cost to the children who lose education. It's a cost to the household that has, job loss and health loss and other loss in their community to have lots of folks who are very transient. So our Settlement Assistance Fund has been overwhelmingly used to help people to stay in their homes, right? $1,000 per household has made a huge impact. The other things that it's been used for is to avoid filing, to allow people to have time to move, and to negotiate to keep housing subsidies, which, as we all know, is a really essential part for some households of being able to afford rent. And so if we're able to save a subsidy, that's a big win. All right, next slide. So I wanted to talk about, I just pooled a couple clients who we've helped from Wilmington in the last few weeks with the Settlement Assistance Fund. And I think it highlights what kind of we think the fund is useful for. And I'm happy to answer questions now or anytime about how we utilize this fund. So I'm gonna just talk about one of these clients. I'm just gonna talk about the top one, and then we can talk about the others. But I think it's a really good example. So I'm going to talk about the top one also because Lisa had questions about this case. And when I was talking to her about it, I was like, oh, this is the perfect example. Again, I just pulled 3 from the last 2 weeks. So we have a client come to us, a grandmother who her daughter had serious mental health and addictions issues, and so she ended up raising 2 grandchildren. Her grandchildren were 16 and 8. Her 16-year-old granddaughter got pregnant, had a great-grandchild that she was then helping to raise. The 16-year-old, who then became 17, ended up passing away. The grandmother had to then pay for the funeral costs. The funeral costs put her behind in rent. However, this is a woman who went from living on retirement income to raising 3 children, to paying for a funeral. She did not have extra money laying around to help her to avoid eviction, right? She had to go out and get an extra job to try and make sure that she was supporting her grandchildren and her great-grandchild in the way that they needed. $1,000 went a long way for this woman. We were able to cure most of her arrears, get her on a repayment plan that worked for her. Her landlord came to the table. We had a good conversation. We came into an agreement for her so that she and her granddaughter and her great-grandson are not displaced. Displacement for her would have meant devastation, right? She had just gotten a job to supplement her income. She had childcare in place. She had just overcome this great grief. And here we go. Now she's facing eviction. These kids would have ended up possibly in a system that we didn't want them to. So stabilizing this family, huge, and this $1,000 went a really long way towards that. Okay, next slide. So we wanted to bring numbers to you. The number of eviction cases in Wilmington. So we're going to talk about the last 17 months because that's how long right to representation has been in effect. You'll see here that of the cases filed, so there are about 6,750 cases that were filed in that 17-month period. Legal aid helped close to 1,000. That seems like a really big discrepancy. We recognize that. We want to talk to you about why that is. A couple of reasons. One is we're still in the implementation period. The second reason is only a portion of the tenants who are filed against in Wilmington are eligible for our services. I kind of mentioned that earlier, right? So clients have to be income eligible for legal aid. That's 200% of federal poverty level, which is a pretty low income. So there are folks who are filed against in Wilmington who don't qualify for legal aid services. As part of the implementation, we talked about the flyers that are going out through landlords, through the courts. The Right to Representation Office is also coordinating outreach. I feel like maybe I took this slide and you were supposed to.
It's okay, you did a good job.
I'm like talking, I'm like, wait a second. I think I was supposed to hand it back. I think this wasn't my slide. That's why I needed the printout that I made for myself earlier.
But I think what another point to make related to that is that, people are not, we can only help the people that come. And so, if they're eligible and they come, then the agencies can help them. But it's unfortunate to think that there are people who, get that flyer, get multiple flyers, and, they're at such a challenging point in their lives that they just don't understand that legal aid is something that they can depend on or rely on, and confidential and all of those things and be helpful to them. So that's one of the things that we'd love for your help with, is to figure out how to make this something that people just will know is available to them and will trust. So the next slide. So we're coming to you with a proposal, this related to settlement assistance. The projection for an annual projection for eviction cases in Wilmington is about 4,700. We project that 30% of those cases would be eligible for and would accept legal assistance. And of those cases, about 50% would benefit from settlement assistance. So the math is that there would be 715 cases per year that would benefit from settlement assistance, as Sarah described, with the average cost that we've been experiencing at about $1,100 per case. The total is $786,000. Next slide. So just to sum up, and then I'm sure we're happy to answer any questions. This is how you can help. This is how City Council and the city can help. Promote our program is refer your constituents who are facing eviction or before they're facing eviction if they're having an issue with their landlord to 211. Or to complete the online intake, or to contact the legal aid agencies directly to check if they're eligible for the right to representation. Let them know that legal aid is free, it's confidential, it's reliable, and that it really does help people. I provided some flyers. I'm happy to provide more flyers if you're going to community events and you want to have them available. I'm happy to provide you with as many as you need. And we'd love your support for our proposal for settlement assistance funds at whatever level is possible.
Yes, no, thank you for this presentation. The story is still sitting with me about the grandmother. That's the story of so many people, right, and throughout our city. And a lot of times as I sit here, like as my councilwoman hat on and I listen to, and I'm like, fighting for certain things, and then people are like, oh, people are just taking advantage of systems. Like, no, most people are struggling out here and they're trying, right? And then think life happens, right? And the work that you guys are doing, for me, it has to be funded. Like, it has to be continued. And I know on my end, we're at the end of a budget hearing now. So like we're at the end, but definitely having this conversation with my other council colleagues on how can we support and what that looks like because over 50% of people in the city of Wilmington are renters, right? That's half of the people in our city. So this conversation is really important. It is a lot of the work that I'm working on is all like connects in regards to like around housing advocacy and putting protections in for people who are renting. So I think that's an important conversation to have. So thank you for the presentation. I'm going to open it up to my council colleagues. I see that Councilmember Chris Johnson has his hand up.
Hi, I would like to thank Classy. Thank you for the work that you do. Similar to Councilwoman Darby, I believe we sponsored the resolution supporting the right to representation, I believe, back in 2022, 2023. So, we've been at the front end of this, because I have the unique background of being an attorney on council. I've represented as court-appointed counsel most of the clients who work with Classy, who are involved with DFS. So it really is important work. So we can find out some way we can get the money. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure it out. So I appreciate your work, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other council members have any questions? Oh, Councilmember Willauer. It was glaring.
Thank you, Council Chair, or Committee Chair Darby. I wanted to thank Classy for the work that you do and for bringing this presentation and sharing the information. If we want to get the information out, what do you recommend in terms of your social media or other materials? How do you recommend that we let more people know about this resource? And I'm looking forward to working with our colleagues on council, like Councilwoman Darby said, just to expand protections for renters and increase people's opportunity to have housing stability, which everybody needs for life. So my first question is, how can we let more people know about what you have to offer? And my second question is, how can we keep this conversation going with you to expand what protections renters have in Wilmington?
I appreciate those questions. So we do have this eviction help page, which provides people with a direct link to our online intake, and it also has lots of other resources for people that are facing a housing crisis. I kind of turn it back to all of you as to what you think would be helpful in terms of reaching your constituents. We have this flyer, happy to give you flyers to pass out, but what do you think is the best way that your constituents would notice? Obviously the flyers are helping, but they're not 100%. So we could use as much as possible more ways to reach people.
Yeah, and I want to say I was drafting an email as you guys were sitting here. I think it's important as council people for us to promote it on our social medias, whatever platforms we have. I looked on the real estate and housing website to see if it was a listed resource. It's not, right? So I'm about to press send on this email.
Okay.
Like, why isn't this
Yeah.
and another program not listed on this website so people know about it? So when they
Okay.
come to the city for help, we know we can point them here. And then as council people, on our council page and our city council page, we can promote it. We can put it out there and say, hey, this program exists. If you need services and need help, please go through here. So that's what I'm thinking on my end. Also, this committee meeting, it will be on replay on TV. People will continue to see this and watch this who needs it. And especially a lot of seniors who watch cable and they're watching Channel 22 will see this, or on social media, whoever's watching. So I think we can get it out that way. And then working with Councilmember Chris Johnson and the rest of the people on the finance chair to the committee to work on how do we figure out money to support the work you are doing. So that's the best I know that I'm going to advocate for and do for you guys.
Thank you.
So, any other Councilmember Owens?
Yes. First off, I just want to say thank you for all the work that Classy does, not only with this program, but with all the other services that you provide to residents of the city of Wilmington. The breakdown that I saw, you have it up there by zip code. Is it any way, and maybe this is council staff question, is there any way we can get that breakdown by councilmatic districts? The evictions over the past 17 months?
That's a great question. I might need some help with that because I think I just have zip codes. So yeah, I might need some help with figuring out how to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that might be impactful for our council members.
Yeah.
Any other council members? Any questions, comments? Well, thank you guys for the work you're doing. And I'm going to advocate to figure out how I can support. That's all I can do. I'm trying here, y'all. So, but no, thank you guys.
Thank you, Chair Darby.
Yes. So that was it for I'm sorry. Oh, public comment. Sorry. Is there anyone online for public comment for the previous presentation or this presentation? And we don't have any public comment in person tonight. All right. Well, there's nothing to vote out or nothing left for our agenda tonight. Is there a motion to move out of committee? A motion to adjourn, I'm sorry.
Second. So moved.
It has been properly moved in second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed or
Aye.
motion carried. All right. Motion carried. All right. We end tonight. See you guys next month.